Welcome, everyone, to Stories Round the Table with Hudson and Joni. We're here to bring you tales as sweet as a glass of sweet tea on a hot summer day. From the rolling hills of Tennessee to the dusty trails of Texas, we've got stories that'll make you tap your boots and clap your hands. On our podcast, we interview amazing country songwriters and singers, sharing stories of love lost and found, of cowboys and outlaws, and of the simple joys of country living. So grab a seat, pour yourself a drink, and get ready to be transported to a world where the stars shine bright and the music never stops. Whether you're a city slicker or a country bumpkin, there's something here for everyone. So sit back, relax, and join us on a journey through the heart of America. Welcome to Stories Round the Table with Hudson and Joni.
Today, we're thrilled to have a very special guest, Jade Jack.
There's nothing better once you've had the best. You're the very thing they sing about in love songs.
Jade is a talented singer-songwriter who's been making waves in the Texas music scene, but she's also known for being the wife of country music star Doug Stone. Join us as we delve into Jade's inspiring journey, her passion for music, and her experiences as a musician and a wife. We'll discuss her life on the road, her family, and her unique perspective on the music industry. Get ready for a heartfelt and entertaining conversation.
Hey, how are you?
I'm great. Hi, guys. How are you?
Good. We thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day. We know you have a family to deal with and everything else on your plate. We truly appreciate you taking the time.
Of course. Yeah, I'm glad to be here.
Sounds like you had a wonderful Thanksgiving.
We did. It was chaos, lots of family, lots of little kids running around. But when you're on the road so much, you don't get to see people as much as you'd like to. So this is really nice time at home.
Absolutely. Did you and Doug and Bristol host it at your place then?
Well, it's kind of, we've got out here, we're kind of in the middle of nowhere. It's 100 acres, and I've got an aunt that lives in one corner, and my parents live in another corner, and then we're in another corner. So we've got like a whole little Waco type situation going out here. So, So we've kind of done some at my mother's house, some over here. It's just kind of been a group effort.
How fun.
Yeah.
Wow. Just go by horseback to each other's place maybe if you wanted.
Listen, it's a short four-wheeler drive away, so lots of fun.
Oh, great. Well, I am a fan. I've heard you play, and I love your music. You're quite a talent on your own, and I know that you're doing a lot with Doug these days, but why don't you just, tell the listeners how you got your start? Is music something that you always had a passion for?
Sure. It was. My mother was a singer when I was small. My grandparents were really involved in the music scene down here in Texas. And so I actually grew up, they would go to a lot of the steel guitar conventions all over the country. And so they kind of would drag me around, and I was just always drawn to the fiddle. Even from being a small child, I've got pictures of me. I could only have been like 2 years old, and I had this little tiny wooden fiddle, and they would pop me up on stage, and just very, very involved. And so I always wanted to do it. And then I got older, started taking lessons, and just played wherever they would let me. Started out doing a lot of the little Opry shows, and then as I got older, I put out a couple projects of my own, and anyway, really was trying to do it, on a big scale, and life kind of took a turn, and now I'm kind of involved in it on a big scale, not me though, and helping Doug with his day-to-day, and so it's just kind of weird, how things end up.
But you did meet each other through music, you and Doug, correct?
We did, yeah. We were doing a show. I was actually in the opening band playing fiddle. And I was raised way more traditional country. I was a Mel Street, George Jones, Ray Price. That was my bread and butter. And if it wasn't... Sorry about that. I muted my microphone.
You're fine.
If If it wasn't like 60s, 70s country music, I really wasn't about it. I mean, it was all George Jones and Haggard and all of that. It's really what I loved. And so I knew of Doug. I mean, I knew like Pine Box, but not a whole lot about him, didn't know a lot of his music. And so we ended up meeting backstage. He came off his bus. I was standing out there in the alley, and he came over and was like, well, hey, I'm Doug Stone. And I was kind of like, okay, nice to meet you.
I love it.
Oh, that's
Anyway,
funny.
so just kind of went from there, and we've got a pretty significant age gap, so I think neither of us thought at the time that, it was going anywhere, but you just never know.
Well, sounds like you guys have a wonderful marriage and relationship. We talked to him a little while ago, and he just couldn't say enough great things about you guys and how happy he is. And it's just it's great to hear things like that. And was it a long romance, or did you guys know right off the bat then, pretty much?
I mean, we had been together about a little over a year when we got married, so I guess you could say pretty quickly.
And then did you go out and play music with him in his band and sing backup or anything, or?
I did. So, I mean, I was doing a lot on my own. I had my own band. I had just put a record out. I was doing a lot down here in Texas. And so I was really trying to do it. And then when I met him, it was like, hey, you come out on the road with me, and you can go out and do, 4 or 5 songs and open for me, and then play fiddle in the band, because he didn't have a fiddle player, which was convenient. And anyway, so did that for a while, but it's kind of funny. I was really hesitant about doing it because I just never wanted anyone to think that I was in it for the wrong reasons. You know what I mean? Like, oh, well, look at her. She just jumped on the first Prevost that she had the chance to. You know what I mean? And look at her. And so actually, I told him no for a really long time. We had actually been married like 2 or 3 years before I actually started playing fiddle in his band, because I was just like, no, I don't want to play on your sessions. I don't want to play on your stage. I don't want anybody to have any ammo. And so it took a lot of convincing. And then finally, I think you just hit a point where it's like, who cares? People are going to say what they're going to say. And, it worked out. So,
the whole word ammunition, I think no matter what you do, they're always going to find it no matter what anyway.
Sure.
So use your own motives, use your own reasons, and if they're going to judge, well, they were probably going to do it to begin with anyway.
Sure. It kind of, I just knew it was like something in me from a really young age. I just knew I was going to be in the music business somehow. I wasn't sure what I was going to be doing, if I would just tour with an artist as a fiddle player, background vocalist, or if I would do my own thing. And it was really funny. Doug was doing the Opry a few years back, and we were kind of backstage, which I love the Opry. It's an honor every time we get to go. It's kind of, anybody who's done the Opry knows.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I was just so proud. Doug hadn't done it in about 15 years, and they had asked him to come back. And I was just kind of standing side stage and watching him. And it was just kind of like, okay, well, maybe this was God's plan for me. Maybe this was how I needed to prep. You know what I mean? This was how I was going to do this. And so I get to crawl on a bus every weekend. You know what I mean? I get to go out and play for big, large crowds and do the Opry and all these awesome things. And I just kind of think what is meant for us will find us. And so it wasn't exactly the way I thought it would be, but it's a really fun life. It's been a lot of good times and, a lot of cool opportunities that I wouldn't have probably had otherwise.
Well, sounds perfect, really. And you were a native Texan, right? Born and raised there?
Yes.
I love that state. I really do. It's just got some of the most awesome people, and they've always embraced my music whenever I've had a chance to play there. I was on a little label in Texas called Wildcatter Records, and it just it's just a great place. And in fact, Doug was talking a little bit about how he feels almost more at home with his music there than in Nashville and a few other places, because it's just really, it's classic country all the way pretty much there in Texas, isn't it?
Sure. It's kind of its own little world, and they actually have really their own music scene. I mean, there's guys down here that are I mean, they're doing it at a huge level, and they're not on a label, they're not signed, and they're just playing in Texas, and they're big names here, making a great living at it. And so it's just kind of its own entity. And I think Doug, he always played a lot here, even back in the day, and I don't think he ever supposed he would live here again, but
yeah, they've got Red Dirt Country there. I know my daughter was involved with that label because she lived in Texas for a little place called Toller, and she lived there for about 4 years, and just recently got married now, but still has her house there, and just loved living in Texas, and I spent a lot of time there with her, and then before that as well. But yeah, it's like you're right. It's its own little country.
We actually interviewed a Texas artist a while back, Justin Trevino.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
He's another great fiddle player, isn't he?
Did you say Justin Trevino?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so funny. My second record that I did was actually produced and engineered by Justin. I did it over
really?
at the Heart Attack Studios in Brady. And really, when I was doing my own thing, I got my first real big job. I was playing fiddle with Leona Williams, who a lot of people know by, she was married to Merle Haggard, but phenomenal songwriter. I mean, phenomenal female vocalist. She's been my favorite for years. I've always admired her, and I got to meet her at a show one day, and she saw me perform, and she just scooped me on up, and I was flying to Branson and flying to Nashville. I would just go to school during the week, and then she'd fly me out wherever we were playing on the weekends, and so that was my first, big girl gig, but to me it was really exciting. I mean, I was only 13 years old getting to do that, which was, I just thought I had hit the big time.
Well, yeah.
I remember literally calling my mom crying and being like, I'm just afraid that these are the best days of my life and they're over, that kind of thing. And how do you go up from here? And so I was working with her, and she had done some projects for the Heart of Texas label that Justin produces for. And so those are my people. I was hanging out with all of them when I met Doug, actually. Justin was in the band that night.
Justin's an amazing guy.
He is such a good guy. They all are. That whole organization is just great. And the funny thing, they still tease me because I remember being backstage. I really wanted my photo with Doug, but I didn't want to just crawl on his bus. You know what I mean? I'm like, hey, will one of you guys just walk with me real quick? I just want a quick photo. And so Justin was standing there, and he's like, well, just Tracy, you take her. Tracy Pitcox, he's the owner of the label and everything. He put the show on, and Tracy's like, well, I'll take you. I won't let anything happen to you. And so anyway, he walked me out to the bus. I got my photo with Doug, and then I started going out to more of Doug's shows as time went on, and they were all kind of texting me like, hey, what you doing? That kind of thing. But they were all in on that. It was so funny just to see how it all happened. But yeah, you couldn't ask for nicer guys. Seriously, I loved all the time we spent together, for sure.
Now I think you've probably had more than one photo with Doug since then.
Yeah, who would have guessed? I didn't think at the time. I really didn't. I think it's cliche to say, when you know, because I mean, Doug was kind of down. Things were not great for Doug. He was not in great health. Career-wise, it was not great. He wasn't doing big shows. Had a bit of... I'm always leery to call him an alcoholic because it wasn't like, oh, I've got to get up and have a drink or I just can't function. But he genuinely loved to drink, and it was just such a big part of his life. And, anybody that's in the music business knows, I mean, being sober in the music business is not exactly easy. That's not a big feat because everywhere you go, it's, hey man, you want some of this, and can I buy you a drink, and here's a shot. And
isn't
so
that part
I really
of the Nashville Constitution?
Yeah, I mean, I really respect and admire people that have been able to get clean or straight and also maintain a career in this. But, I just got to know him and kind of started looking him up more, and I just thought, wow, what a nice guy and what potential, and kind of got to know some more about him, his personal life and past marriages and trouble with grown children and all of that. And we really just kind of developed a friendship, but I just thought, God, what potential, what a waste of what once was and what could be again, just a phenomenal career, And so that kind of became my little pet project. It was really weird. A few months after we met, he had a deal with his manager. It was a $10,000 no drinking bet. It was no alcohol for a year. So the first,
for only 10 grand? You might have to pay me more than. You might have to pay me a little bit more than that.
Well, I thought it was a little cheap, but Doug was about it. He was like, I can't drink a $10,000 beer. I think the old Georgia country boy in him. He was just like,
okay,
I just can't do that.
Now you put that in perspective. One drink for 10 grand. Okay, now it's in perspective.
Hey there, country music fans. Love the show? We're thrilled to announce the launch of our brand new website, Stories Round the Table with HudsonandJoni.com. That's right. Stories Round the Table with HudsonandJoni.com. There, you'll find everything you need to stay connected with the country music world. Browse past episodes featuring your favorite country artists, get a sneak peek at upcoming shows, and even learn more about Hudson James and Joni Harms, the dedicated country music enthusiasts behind the mic. But wait, there's more. Now you can show your love for country music with our brand new merch. From comfy tees to stylish mugs, we've got something for every country music lover. Head over to the website to check out the collection and rep your favorite artists and the genre you love. Stories Round the Table, your go-to for all things country music. Visit Stories Round the Table with HudsonandJoni.com today.
Yeah, so really, we were married and Doug wasn't drinking. He was still in that year-long. So I never really knew drunk Doug. You know what I mean? I hadn't spent much time around that guy. I just knew, the sober Doug and this and that, and things were going good. And then, before we know it, we had gotten married, and then he was kind of drinking again. And so I think it just kind of hit a point where it was like, okay, Lord, he's either going to get it together or he's going to be shopping for number 5. You know what I mean? I wasn't equipped. I wasn't prepared. I had this little baby, I had our daughter, and I just knew he could do it. I just knew. I'm like, Doug, you can do anything you set your mind to. And so really just prayed hard about it. And eventually he just hit a point where he was just like, I'm done. I'm done with this. I don't want to live like this. He got really involved in our home church here where we live. And so it was just like God stepped in and just put his hand on Doug's life is the only way I can describe it, because no one else could have put it on his heart, you know what I mean, to make the changes that he did. And now this coming summer, he'll be 8 years sober.
That's awesome. Sounds like you were his little angel. Really good.
Well, people say that. I don't know about all that, but I think, he says sometimes, he's like, a woman can make or break you.
And he said that, and I said, no, they can't. It's not that they can. They will either make or break you.
Well, it's true. I think in any case, if you find yourself around people that aren't the best influences and don't really have your best interest in mind, anybody can kind of go down that dark hole. So I'm really, really proud of him. And now we have really just built this thing up. And like I said, I kind of put my things on the burner. Like I said, I had our daughter. And I just threw myself into his career. I remember back when he wasn't on a major booking agency and I was just calling. I would get on Mark Chestnut's website, Daryl Singletary's websites, and I was just calling venues. Hey, I've got Doug Stone. He's, coming back out. And so I was kind of hustling. It was just kind of my thing for a long time. And
well, that's how this podcast actually started.
Really?
That was actually exactly the same way it started. And, after COVID, I couldn't do concert promotions. So I took that time to figure out exactly what I wanted to do. That's where the podcast came. I'm like, you know what? I really want to do a podcast where we just interview anybody that works in country music. Whether they're an agent, a manager, a songwriter, a singer, anybody that has to do with it. And I reached out the same way you did by reaching out to 100 different artists. And Joni was the only one that responded.
Oh.
And then she did the interview, and 2 or 3 weeks later, she became a co-host.
Yeah. Well, like I said, what's meant for you will find its way to you,
Right. It's how it works. But you got to be willing to take that time. Because it took me probably 3, 4, maybe even 5 months. 8 hours
Yeah.
a day, you know, calling all these people and hustling all these, and trying to find someone that would have interest. That's
Yeah.
how music works. You
Yeah.
can't give up
And
on it in like a week.
And it always comes back around. It's kind of funny. I remember, you know, Doug had been sober for a couple of years and, you know, kind of making a stir, and he had reached out to some previous agents that he had done some work for. And, you know, I'm not going to lie, I'm sure he did some bad shows. He lost his voice there for a while, bad health issues, you know, the drinking thing didn't help. And I remember specifically him calling this woman one day, and he had done some stuff for her, and he just told her, hey, listen, I'm sober now. I'm really doing this. And I'll never forget, she told him on the phone, she was like, nobody will take a risk on you again.
Wow.
And of course that ticked me right off. We were sitting in the car and I'm just like,
Wow.
and who the heck is she? You know what I mean? And it's so funny because we had kind of a big money offer come across my desk last week. And I looked at the name and I immediately called Doug's agent and I was like, hold on a second. Is this so-and-so with so-and-so agency? And Jimmy, Doug's agent, was like, yeah, that's them. And it was that woman. And I just thought to myself,
Ooh.
I thought, that
Burn.
is so
Burn.
wonderful. You know what I mean? That, you know, here we are 11 years later. And all the people that said he couldn't do it and he wouldn't do it, now they're knocking on our door, and it's a good feeling, you know.
Yeah, and now how do you go with that?
Well, you know, I did. I had a pretty bad temper with people, and kind of sidebarring, you know, I really wanted to do this on my own, but once I got in and I started kind of managing Doug's affairs, there's no way I would try it as an unknown. In today's times, I mean, I see how much grief and how much trouble someone, even at the level of success that he's had, it's just crap sometimes. And I just shake my head and I'm like, you couldn't pay me all the money in the world to put up with this. You know, you just couldn't. But I just learned really quick to kind of be cautious about burning bridges, because the music business, as large as it is, it's small.
It's
And
so
you might
small.
tell somebody to go to hell one month and then they've got a huge gig for you the next month, and we could pass, you know, I could pass on it just to spite them, but I'd rather take their money and then go to Hawaii. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
no, I get it, and you're right.
And that's
You know,
just
the
how I see
music
it.
industry is huge. You know,
Yeah.
you can deal with agents that deal with country singers, but they also have clients that are rock, pop, and everything else.
yeah.
And so that one
absolutely.
agent, they know people in every genre.
Yeah, it's amazing how widespread it is, but there's really just not that many people sitting at the large table pulling the strings. You know what I mean? It's
No.
it's a lot more centralized than I think people realize. But yeah, that's kind of how I view it, and I wish I would have adapted that perspective 10 years ago. But we've come around, and you know, everybody deserves a second chance. So
Absolutely, and in situations like that, it's always worked. You just put it in God's hands and say, "What do you want me to do?"
absolutely, you have to.
Yeah,
you know
and
what?
you get your answer.
Sometimes people need 3 or 4 chances.
Yes, for sure.
You know, I mean,
Yeah.
life is life, and we don't always make the right choice.
Yeah. Yeah, and you really don't know. I mean, you don't know what somebody's going through, and not just with Doug. I mean, I've kind of been afforded the opportunity to be around a lot of his peers, a lot of 90s guys, and they're all the same. They've all got the same problems, the same struggles. They're just like everybody else. And you just don't know. Their lives look so great, but you just don't know what they're dealing with behind the scenes. And oh, it's so glamorous, and you've got a great bus, and so fun, and you just do this for a living, and they don't know about, you know, time away from their wives, and they haven't seen their kids in 6 months. And, you know, it's all those sacrifices that people, the general public, they don't think about, you know.
Yeah, there was a singer back in the 90s, and I want to mention the name, but I don't want to misquote, so I just won't say the name. But he was on tour, and his mom had passed away, and he couldn't even go home for the funeral because he was locked into a contract.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's more of that. As a matter of fact, when Doug's dad passed away several years back, it was the same thing for Doug. He didn't go to the funeral. He couldn't. I think we had to be out west, and we couldn't go. And so, yeah, it's a real thing. And everybody's got a job to do, but that's the hard stuff, you know.
And that's something a lot of people don't really get to hear. or they don't know. They just don't see it.
Yeah, and I think then, kids grow up and there's resentment because, maybe daddy wasn't at home as much as they think he should have been. But then it's like, well, what about that mansion you lived in and all your toys and your four-wheelers and jet skis and trips and, you know what I mean? It's kind of like, wow, because I grew up my mother was a single mother. She had me at 18 and she's built a huge medical company out here, but I watched her make something from nothing. But I remember being little, and we didn't have much. We lived in a trailer, like we had to turn on the gas stove for heat sometimes. And so I remember all that. So I hear people sometimes when it's like, oh, I had it so bad. And I just kind of laugh to myself. I'm like, man, I wish I would have had someone out there that was working to support us. You know what I mean? It's like, let's not fault the guy for not maybe being around all the time, but you just can't have your cake and eat it too. You know what I mean? You want the big lavish life, but then it's, oh, well, you were a terrible father, that kind of thing. And so it can kind of snowball into the big things that affect these guys, to do the job.
Absolutely. Well, I think it's amazing that you guys ended up finding each other and having Bristol, and I know she's the light of both your life. And it's great. And what you're saying is so true. Everybody needs to have chances, and I think in a lot of ways it's almost best that the general public doesn't know about all the things you miss and all the hardships that you have.
Sure.
Because they come to a concert and they want to be happy and be lifted up. They don't want to get up there and talk about all the things that are going wrong in your life.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're their escape. So, that's your job.
Yeah, I remember right after my mom died, it was around Christmas time, and I had planned a date where I had my two kids, I think they were 10 and 8, and we all got up. Were we missing Grandma and my mom? Absolutely. But, I know she would have wanted to get up and do a concert, and we did. And thanks to the audience about everything that was going on behind the scene.
Yeah.
It's just what you do. But it makes you human, and I think it makes you appreciate even more what you've been able to have the opportunity to do when things go right.
Sure.
So, Jade, when are you coming out with more music?
Well, I'll tell you what, I've not done much for a long time.
I know.
I've seen this whole 90s country resurgence. When I did get with Doug, it kind of opened a whole new world of music for me. I found, Leanne Womack and just these phenomenal female vocalists, and I've just grown to love them. And so I think now that's like when I do shows with Doug, I'll do like a Steve Wariner song and Leanne Womack stuff. And so this whole 90s country thing is just seeing such a resurgence, and I'm seeing young people online like posting covers, and it's just blowing up. And so Doug's been on me for a long time. He's like, listen, if you want to do this, I will help you. I will, you say the word. And I don't want it on a big scale, but I definitely think there would be a lot of joy in getting back out there. And so I think we're about to go back into the studio and cut some stuff, even if it's just a small little EP, and just pop it out there and see how it does.
Well,
but
I know this. I want some more of your music on YouTube.
Yeah, well, we're working on all that. Like I said, I might pop Doug back there. He can be my acoustic player back there in the little videos and stuff, because he's really great about that. He's like, hey, I'll play acoustic for you, like whatever you want, whatever you need, like super supportive in that way. So I think we're getting ready, and as things are slowing down for him, kind of winding down, it's given me a lot more time. So I think in the new year we'll definitely have some new stuff sliding across your desk.
Yay!
Yeah.
You really do have an amazing voice, and I hope more people can find it. And we will make sure to promote it during this week as well, when we do the interview. But you really do have a great voice.
Thank you. Yeah. It's been a lot of fun. There's so many great vocalists out there, and like I've heard Doug tell people before, there were guys that were just as good as him, and he just got lucky. Everybody just gets lucky, and there may be somebody down the road that's much better than me, or much better than the next person. And so, you just want to put it out there and for people to enjoy, and I know I'm constantly hounded by people that are like, when is new stuff coming out? They're waiting. So I just, even now, if it's just more for fun, and just see what happens.
Good deal. I'm glad to hear that. Well, we want to wish you and Doug and Bristol and all your family there on the pound, there on the block, a fantastic holiday season, and it sounds like there'll be lots of music in your home and just lots of laughter and good cooking and that's what it's all about, isn't it?
Absolutely. Well, we wish the same to you guys.
Well, thank you again, Jade, so much for taking out the time. I know you're running a busy house, and really appreciate you taking the time to do this interview.
Hey, no problem. Thank you for asking me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
This is a Lone Star Legacy Productions